Today is April 24th. Welcome back to our third Connecticut Recyclers Coalition What's In, What's Out session. Today we're going to focus on glass and metal in the mixed stream. Just as a reminder, there are 2 more sessions coming up every other Wednesday. On May 8th, it will be regarding more of a focus of contamination and hard to manage material that's going to the material recovery facilities. And on May 22nd, we're going to focus away from the material recovery facilities and talk a little bit about organics and that they can be recycled and they are a resource. So today, I'm going to show you this photo of, this is Murph glass. Bad recycling habits, I've said this before, equal poor quality results and it results in higher tip fees. I think this will be my opinion. But I hope that you all agree, particularly our panelists, that single stream can really work, and it has a place in our system. And when our residents are recycling right, we get good quality material. But it really comes down to our residents making good decisions, and their bad habits create habits on our system that add cost as well. So Murph glass, it has historically been a negative cost to our material recovery facilities. I'm going to show you some close-ups of this material recovery facility glass. These facilities were designed to be able to crush that glass, and because thinking everything else was going to be big and bulky, we'd get clean glass. But the reality is residents are throwing away small items under 2 inches. My screen's not working, so bear with me. So I circled a few spots where you can see there's metal within this glass. There's also a lot of things, but since we're talking about glass and metal, you can see how they become a little bit married out of the material recovery facility. I have a few more close-ups, and even when something might be longer than 2 inches, as long as it's 2 inches in diameter in one direction, it's going to fall through those screens. So in this case, it looks like it might be hairspray. It fell through the screens and became part of Murph glass. There's a lot of paper, plastic, metal, and glass in this because unfortunately most residents believe if it's any one of those 4 categories, they can recycle it. And we know that's not true. If you look real close, you'll see a lot of familiar items in this photograph, including a battery up here and this prescription bottle. So my hope is that you as recycling coordinators will always remember to teach your residents the rule of 2 inches minus. If it can fall through a 2-inch hole in any diameter in any direction, it doesn't belong just because it's plastic, paper, metal, we want the glass, doesn't mean that it can be recycled. I threw this picture in. Thank you, Murphy Road. Not all Murph glass is so dirty that it has to be sent to landfill as alternate daily cover. Murphy Road did upgrade their material recovery facility last year, and they've done an outstanding job in showing what technology can do for us in the future and creating some really great glass that can actually be recycled. With that, I'm going to share again the video of the material recovery facility. So for those who haven't joined us the last few sessions, and for those of you who have, may you have a 3-minute break.
This is why I stopped shopping on Amazon, and you should too. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first.
Watch the...
Residential single-stream material is brought to the MRF and dumped on the tipping floor. It is then loaded into a large feeding container at the start of the system. Advantages of the drum feeder include improved productivity, more effective pre-sort, and even flow of material. While the machine feeds the system, the loader operator is free to perform other duties like organizing the tipping floor. From the drum feeder, the material is inclined to the first pre-sort station, where workers remove large, bulky items. From this pre-sort, the material drops onto an OCC screen. Smaller pliable material falls through the stars while larger rigid material like cardboard bounces over them. The smaller material that falls through drops onto a glass breaker fine screen to break and remove the glass and other 2-inch minus sized material from the stream. The broken glass moves to a glass cleanup system for further separation to make it clean and sellable. The system screens material into 4 fractions: oversized, fines, heavies, and lights. Remaining material now goes to a second pre-sort. Workers remove any small trash items, grocery bags, and small cardboard that fell through the OCC screen. Removing film and small OCC prior to the single-stream screens is key to the system's success. The material drops onto an anti-wrapping ONP screen. This is the first of 3 screens designed to separate fiber from containers. The anti-wrapping feature dramatically reduces maintenance. After several hours of operation, the screen has virtually no material wrapped around its shafts. Large 2D fiber is scalped up and over the screen and goes through quality control, where contamination is removed by hand. The clean fiber end product flows into a storage conveyor for future baling. This process is repeated on 2 more screens with progressively tighter spacing to maximize fiber recovery. Each of the 3 screens has its own QC line with access to a conveyor that takes any flat containers back to the container line. The 3D objects left on the 3rd screen bounce back and are conveyed to an optical sorter for final fiber removal. The Tomra AutoSort 4 recovers any remaining fiber prior to the container sort line. It identifies 2D sheet paper as well as 3D boxboard. Ejected fiber goes back to the mixed paper QC line for recovery. The remaining material is conveyed to the container recovery line, which is comprised of 3 additional AutoSort 4s. The containers then travel under an overbelt magnet. This powerful magnet lifts all ferrous cans from the transfer conveyor and discharges them into a storage bin for baling. The material that passes under the magnet drops onto a manual container sort line. With all other commodities recovered, the remaining material drops off the manual sort belt onto an eddy current separator. The eddy current propels aluminum cans over a separation gate and onto a quality control conveyor. The clean aluminum is then transported to the appropriate bin via an air transport system. The final recovery station is located on the main platform to allow one sorter the chance to recover any fibers or containers. All stored material goes through 2 balers, including a high-speed, no-shear Bolograph HBC 120S. Both machines are capable of baling all commodities to achieve true baler redundancy. Contact us for more information on this system or for a tour of the facility.
Oh, thank you for letting me entertain you again on the material recovery facility. Hi, Joe. Hi, Jonathan. Hey, Mike. Thanks for joining us again for the 3rd time. Hope you're not getting too bored from all of this stuff that you do every day. And thanks, Cheryl Baldwin from Connecticut DEP for joining us to be our moderator today. So I'm going to let Cheryl take it over, and I'm going to turn my video off and tell us what you have for us today. And you can start sharing, Cheryl.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And I'm sorry that it looks like Keith isn't joining us today, but I think we will be able to cover everything that we need to, even though he didn't join us. So, oh, sorry. For some reason, it started in the middle. Watch your eyeballs. All right. Well, thank you. So if you have joined us in the past, you're going to hear another review of just sort of an introduction. Again, my name is Cheryl Baldwin. I'm with Connecticut DEEP, the Sustainable Materials Management Program. And of course, the reason that we are talking about this is because of contamination rates. We're trying to educate our residents as best we can to help them understand what goes in the bin and what does not go in the bin. In 2015, we had a very high contamination rate. We have not done a waste characterization since then, but it does give us a sense of what the contamination rate was before we started working on the What's In, What's Out program. I would hope that it would have reduced a little bit, but it's possible it's about the same. We can also get a sense of what we're talking about today. It's actually a small portion of the recycling stream in terms of metal. Looks like 1.7% was steel back in 2015 and 0.6 was aluminum. It might even be less aluminum now that the bottle bill has changed and it's gone up to 10 cents. Glass is a large portion at 17.2%. And as you'll hear, and as you heard from Jen, it does become a problem because all the small stuff contaminates the glass. From the 2015 waste characterization, we found that there were 5 top contaminants, the major one being plastic bags. We also found bottle caps were a problem, as is all small stuff. Shredded paper becomes a problem, and of course, bagged material, and then things that tangle in the equipment. After the waste characterization, we knew we wanted to do some statewide education. But before we could do statewide education, we recognized we really needed to come up with a comprehensive list of what is acceptable in the program and what is not. Because from town to town to town, everybody had a different take, and sometimes they were bringing it to the same facility. So in 2017, we met with all the, 2016, we met with all the facility operators, which included Mira at that point. But now, of course, it does not. But in terms of the questions that we posed to all the facility operators were these. We asked all the different items in all different products or materials. Number 1, is this item harmful to your employees? For those that have never been to a MRF facility, you saw a lot of people hand sorting. So we need to understand what is potentially harmful to their staff. And then 2, what types of materials are coming down the line that could shut down or harm the equipment? This is why tanglers are such an issue in terms of wires and hoses and things. And then, of course, what are the items that are coming down that are reducing the value of the commodities? We saw glass, which was hard to recognize it as glass. And that's because all that stuff really reduces the value of the glass and the MRF operator's ability to sell it. And just a reminder, we do have mandatory recycling. You can see these are all the materials that are mandated or designated to be recycled in Connecticut. And if we break it apart, we can see the items that are meant to go in the mixed recycling bin. You can see it's about glass and metal food and beverage containers. And so it's not really different types of metal beyond that. Any other items, of course, it does mean that the material should not be disposed of or should be recycled, but is likely in a different program. And of course, Recycle CT offers lots of information about what is in and what is out, and we'll talk a little bit more about that now. So Mike, Jonathan, and Joe, are you ready?
Sure.
First...
Hopefully get up.
Why not? Okay, here's your quiz, Mike. So we get asked this question a lot, right? Recycling coordinators get asked specific details. What's the issue with not putting broken bottles and jars in the recycling bin? Usually we respond by saying it's because of the collection workers, right? You want to protect them and make sure that they're not getting stuck by broken glass. Do you see that there are issues?
It's a safety issue. It's a safety issue all around, right? Glass
anytime you have a jagged edge, you run the risk of something, right? So why not just not put the jagged edge in there? That's really all it is, right? It's just a safety concern, right? All of us deal in commodities that are on this call, but our biggest commodity is our people, right? So first and foremost, we got to keep them safe, and that's where we went with it. That's why the jagged edges weren't wanted.
I mean, we are competitors, so I get to agree to disagree at times there, Mr. Joe. I think, yeah, definitely, we're always going to talk about safety. It's going to be the first paramount to any discussion, right? And we all take it extremely seriously. I'm glad that's why, everybody always brings it up usually first. Once it gets to our facility, it's going to be broken. It's going to be compacted into the compactors, into the trucks. It's going to be pushed around by the payloaders. And most of the time, it's going to be, for the most part, getting out probably in the beginning of our systems, especially our new systems. So the safety element, at least where the industry has changed in that aspect as far as the MRF, recognizing that it's a safety issue and getting that glass out in the beginning.
All right. Anything, Jonathan?
No, I agree. It's a safety issue as far as the guys, if you have someone out picking it up on the street that's not automated. Fortunately, we do most of our collections not all automated, so we're not touching the glass. And I agree with Mike, it does break. And in our system, it's basically the first thing that comes out is the glass, and we smash it when it gets there. So for us to get it out. But yeah, it is we're able to handle it.
Great, thanks. So what about all those little plastic and metal rings or the foil that goes around wine bottles? And sometimes it's actually plastic that goes around sort of the neck of a wine bottle. And corks. How much of a problem are these? Should people remove them?
I think people wanted them removed because they're going to end up, they're not getting recycled, even if you put them in separately. They're going to end up in our glass system. So if they're on the bottle or not on the bottle, if they go in the bin, they're going to end up in the glass, and then we have to remove them because they contaminate the glass. So if you take them off and throw them away, that's probably the best. It's one less thing to contaminate the glass, in my opinion, in the system, because they're small enough, they're going to end up over there anyways, and they're not going to make it through to get recycled.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. It's the rule of 2-. If it's 2 inches or less, just throw it out, because it's only going to end up in the glass anyway. Everybody's glass breakers are made exactly the same, right? So anything that's 2-, no matter what it is going to end up in your glass. So the push should be not whether you should, just if it's 2-, get rid of it.
And right from the beginning, I was glad that Jonathan sent that picture along of his glass. So I don't know what you have, Joe or Keith, but I also have a glass cleanup system that targets that 2.5-inch minus as well. And I don't know what, John, your stats are, but we're at, in our glass cleanup system, we dispose of 150 tons a month to make that clean glass. And all these small things that we're talking about, it adds up. It's not all of the 150 tons in my case. It's probably out of that, it's probably a good 30%, 40% of the 150 overall tons, because we take out a lot of the fines and the papers and all the 2.5-inch minus stuff is coming out into our glass system, and we are disposing it, right? So we get rid of that, follow the rules up front, and then we have less of a problem. And to Jen's point, the rates are, will be able to go down.
So Mike, you brought up a really interesting statistic. What percentage or how many tons a month are you guys throwing away of the stuff that contaminated the glass? Do you know?
Astronomical. It's astronomical. What we pull out of the glass is astronomical, whether it's paper clips, batteries, lighters, shredded paper, caps. I mean, the list goes, Mike and Jonathan will attest to it. The list goes on and on. Chicken bones, right? For some reason, it's this strange anomaly where every food bone ends up in our glass as well. It's it's astronomical, right? So to Mike's point, if we push from the front with just throw out the 2-inch minus, that's where the push has to be.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that, USA Waste has a beautiful brand new system, and they're doing massive tons of like I used to do in Charlestown a day. So his numbers got to be way up there. I mean, I'm only doing 4,000 to 5,000 tons a month of single stream here, and I'd have to really break down the 150 tons of what was fine glass and all the other 2.5-inch minus stuff. I don't have a legit number, but it's substantial for sure, even at my volume.
Yeah, I agree. It's somewhere between 8 and 12% of the glass is glass residue, and then there's another 3 to 5% of fines.
Wow. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Thanks. All right, next question. So what about small bottles if they're glass? I know there's not a lot of small bottles, but to the left is like I don't know, some type of a cosmetic, and the center might be glass. You still can find glass for like vanilla or some herbs. And on the right, it's probably like a perfume. Are those accepted glass?
They're okay for me.
In our new glass cleanup system, we actually put a crusher in place to take care of the small glass. But again, as long as in these pictures, those tops are removed, across all 3 of the pictures, all the tops have to be removed.
Great.
Okay, that was an easy one. All right, canning jars. So this is a glass metal question. We often look at different types of glass because they have different melting points. Are canning jar glass the same as our regular bottles and jars? And what are the issues with canning jar lids and rings?
The lids and rings are going to end up falling through with the glass because they're that shape, 2-inch minus, and they're pretty flat. So they'll get pulled out by the magnet that's on the glass system. So those, I don't seem to be too problematic to me. Or though if they make it through farther, they're going to end up getting pulled out with the magnet farther in the bottle and can line. I haven't had a big issue with the canning jars.
It's the same glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur.
We get asked that question. So the metal rings don't get picked up. Not that anybody should be putting them in the recycling because they are so reusable. And if you're a jammer, like I personally am, you would save them and use them again. But
A jammer.
it sounds so much better than jelly maker.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Sure, I'll give you that one.
Jammer. Yeah.
Okay. So this goes along similar question. We have a lot of people that are doing their own brewing of beer or making their own vinegar, and all these containers are now sold. And then you have sort of the vintage canning that you often find in thrift shops, etc. Are these accepted?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if they take the metal off of them, but
Mhm.
if they smash, we'll get the metal out.
You're gonna see maybe one of those every 3 years.
Say that
The
again,
one-
Joe?
You're not going to see the one on the right there's not enough of it in the stream to be an issue. And to Jonathan's point, if you could take it off, that'd be great. If you don't, all of our glass cleanup systems have a magnet.
Okay.
Because the neck's gonna break anyway. It's gonna separate from that bottle long before it gets into the system.
Well, Cheryl, being the jammer that you are, is that metal on the right hard to take off?
It takes a little bit, but it's not too bad. If it was sealed, you might have an old rubber thing in between, because you can buy, you can buy those. You can still use them. I still use them.
I would say the bigger issue with these ones on the right are people leave the turpentine or the gasoline or paint thinner in it that they had their brush soaking in and send it to us. And that's a bigger problem.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, awful photos, but why not Pyrex or ceramics? Why can't we put ceramics and Pyrex dishes in?
Is
Isn't
urban
it
mining
glass?
on? Is urban mining on the call?
Yeah. Again, we're talking about the mixed recycling program and not necessarily the ability of all glass to be recycled, right?
Correct.
Ceramics ruin any glass. Like you could have a size ceramic of a dime and it could cause a problem with the systems of the glass recycling. So ceramics are out because of whatever the continuity is of that, it destroys the glass. Pyrex has something in the glass. So Pyrex is similar to the double paned old windows that you would get with some sort of like, I don't know, I forget, there was like xenon in between the two panes of glass. There's something in the Pyrex that makes it not sustainable for recycling on the back end.
Yeah, and to Jill's point, just to go to a story of 100 years ago, the ceramics, we had a Anheuser-Busch operator come out that actually made bottles for Bud. And I don't know if I believed him at the time. I still don't know if I believe him, but he said that anytime that they had an imperfection due to the ceramics in their bottle making, that they threw out 50 trail loads in front and 50 trail loads in back. I thought that might have a little bit excessive, but yeah, I mean, it's Anheuser-Busch, so it's probably not as bad today because we definitely don't see I don't see a lot of ceramics. It's gone such a long way in improving as far as my perspective.
That's good to hear that you don't see much of it. So along the same lines, mirrors,
Oh,
and then of course what Joe was saying, windows and even windshields or car windows.
right.
It's
Oh.
my understanding that windshields, you know, when it breaks and it stays like that, it's because there's sort of this coating. And it's my understanding that now even side windows have this weird coating to sort of keep it in place after it's smashed. I don't even know if they can be recycled in other programs at this point, but I assume you do not accept them in your program.
No,
The
I
Murph.
think we stick, I think there are the stories that stick with food grade stuff, you know, that's
Yeah.
not a great product. It's a household
Yeah.
product.
It's not a container. So again, just return to the what's in, what's out. So metal. We love
Those-
talking about small stuff. What about beer caps and jar lids?
They'll make it through to the glass, and with the magnets, we can get some of them. We're not gonna get all of them. It depends on the burden depth and if the magnet's gonna grab them all, but you'll get them. They'll come out there.
Is that the same for beer caps and jar lids? Because jar lids are larger and
Some will make it out there and some will make it farther along and get pulled out in the bottles and can area. So they're okay.
Agreed.
we usually educate people that beer caps are out, but jar lids are in. What do you think about that, Joe? Mike, who hasn't responded?
So the reality with the operators is that a lot of these things that we say don't do it, we beg them to please do it, to keep it out. But we've adapted and managed and created our systems to recognize the fact that all people are not going to be doing the same thing the way that they should be. And this material is going to make it into our systems. So I think we touched on it in the first segment of having the aluminum eddy current, having the magnets, and having recirculation as far as I know in my case that we'll put another pass for these types of metals from the glass. We do have a magnet like the rest of the guys on the glass system. So we have a couple magnets in our system to grab stuff like this. And a redundancy on the aluminum eddy current as well.
It's all going to the glass. You got to make sure you have a glass magnet you know, some sort of magnet on your glass. So, you know, the only thing that bothers me about it is when you're, this is where you run into the conversations where, well, how come you could take that? That's 2-, right? If that's where it becomes extremely convoluted, right? But we actually, you can make a very good product out of that coming off. So it's helpful.
So just to remind you, we usually tell people no to beer caps, but yes to jar lids, because jar lids do come in smaller sizes, but a lot of them are very large. You know, I think of like a pickle jar. So just for recycling coordinators on the line, that's sort of what we're saying at this point, hoping that the larger lids are easier for them to capture with their magnets on the glass line. Hopefully you guys won't shoot me on that one.
No, you're good.
So other types of lids, in this case, the lid from a steel can that you've removed, or perhaps it came from like an orange juice container where you don't have the orange juice container go in, but what about the metal top and bottom?
Same. It's gonna end up probably in the glass because it's flat, but it may make its way over to the bottle and can line, and we'll get it there.
So should people put the top inside the can and then squish it?
Much better.
100%.
That'd be great.
Did everybody hear that? Who, if you're taking notes and listening, you're
Not in the
saying,
orange juice can.
but not the orange juice can. So steel can, soup, beans, etc. Put the top and the squish it.
Even if you don't squish it, when you put it in there sideways, it's gonna hold itself in there. They're a little wider. That's what I do with mine. Stuff them inside, and they don't seem to move.
All right. I'll put all my canning lids in there now.
Okay.
So a little bit different. We have a lot more products that have pull tabs instead of using a can opener. You know, we have the little weird tabs that come off of soda cans or beer cans, but we also have like the full pull tab that comes off of different products, like everything from beans, sardines, cat food. What about those?
I believe they're aluminum. You guys, do you
Yeah.
believe that they're aluminum? So my glass system, I don't have an eddy current on my glass system. You know, we've looked at it and we don't really get a lot of aluminum. That's where they're gonna end up, and they're probably gonna end up in the trash. They do fit that glass size though, that kind of ends up in the glass pile, so they are contaminating the glass when they do get there. So they're not great. They could stay attached to the lid that they, I don't know, have to pull them off the lid.
Yeah, that would definitely be better, but I mean, again, it's gonna fall through, but you know, I'm set up where it's gonna be captured.
The aluminum won't be captured. To Jonathan's point, you don't have an eddy current over there, and all except for the Goya one, the other pictures that you have here, I can't see the other picture because everybody's faces are in there, but the aluminum's not going to be captured. So the soda and beer tabs that are on the bottom, those can't go in. Sardine one up top, I'm in agreement with Jonathan. I believe that top of that is aluminum as well.
So what's a better way for us to capture that material? Because we know that people are putting it in the recycling bin. We have not said it's an out. Should it stay inside the can? Should they put it in a can so that it's easier for you to capture it? What's the issue if the aluminum top goes in a steel can?
But now you're potentially contaminating your steel load with aluminum, which I don't think it's that big of a deal, as long because I don't think you're going to see this in vast quantities. Even if you put it out there, it's not going to be vast quantities, but you run that potential. So I think you're confusing the situation by saying we'll put the aluminum in your steel, and if it falls out, we're going to lose it. And if you start getting big quantities of it, it could contaminate the material, or it could contaminate your aluminum, because now if it senses the aluminum, it's going to throw it off the eddy. I mean, it's kind of like the cat food can situation. You end up with a contamination in your aluminum because it's sensing it's aluminum, but it's really a mix.
Okay, so we're going to continue to put all of this material, except for the little can tabs on the bottom, into our recycling bin. whether it's steel or aluminum,
Mhm.
that you'll capture it in some form.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
All right. And I added this because, believe it or not, we get questions about whether or not you can actually recover squished cans.
We can. I think people aren't squishing them to the point I don't see that they're squishing them. Aluminum cans maybe so flat that they're going to fall through the screen for the glass, and they do make it. We don't see a lot of those in our glass. I don't, at least. And then the tin cans, are the bottom lid, not being cut off makes it hard to flatten it that much, and they make it through. So I don't personally don't see that as a problem.
I think the squished cans question comes up because the aluminum cans back in the day, people used to have a little handheld thing. You'd put the aluminum can in, you'd go like that and you'd squish it, right? We don't see that anymore.
It's like they'd make it into like a puck.
Yeah, you would make it into a puck so that way you could store more and then you'd go get whatever redemption or whatever you got on it.
All right. Aluminum pie pans, takeout containers. If they're clean,
Take off the lids. Separate the
lids.
plastic
Separate the
lid,
lid.
separate the cardboard lid, then they're fine.
And take all of the food out of it.
We don't want.
that's right. What does Joe say? Recyclables should not smell. I like
Shouldn't
that
smell,
line.
yeah, it just shouldn't smell like garbage. That again, your biggest problem with these containers are from your younger demographic throughout your cities and towns where they use it as an ashtray. They put, the bottom container, you get mac and cheese and you get chicken wings in, right? And then you just use it as the garbage can right in front of you, and then they throw it into the recycling. And then it all ends up all over our plant.
All right. Foil, aluminum foil. How do you want it? You want it scrunched, bald, flat, something else made into a little swan?
What do you recommend to the citizens, Cheryl?
I usually say sort of slightly scrunch, because if it's in a ball then and it's heavy, you may be concerned there's food in it.
That's a very actually apt description too. Yeah, well, I love the aluminum foil, so I think your description probably is pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Would you take a ball? There are people, even former division directors of weed, who wanted to ball it up. Would you take it as a ball?
I would.
Excellent.
It's aluminum foil. I'll take it. I'll take all of it. But no food, please. Again.
Joe, it looks like you're contemplating.
No, I mean, I'll take it, right? It's aluminum is we'll all take it, right? You have to sort that differently because I don't think people understand that most aluminum, that the bigger ones, so Anheuser-Busch, right? They're only looking for UBC. They're not looking for aluminum foil, right? So it's another sorted item. So to me, scrunching it up in a ball is worse because it makes it harder for the sorter to identify it and pull it out of the system, right? That's just my opinion on it, only because that isn't, the common resident doesn't know what we're recycling, right? So aluminum cans are not aluminum foil.
Great.
Okay. So for me, I usually do all the way on the left. I kind of scrunch it up, but it's not completely bald. Sort of on the same line, we get this call all the time too, is yogurt container tops. When you take off the plastic lid and then there's that foil, whether it be the tiny or the large, and you peel it off. Is that true aluminum foil? Can that get put in with other aluminum foil? We say no because Tom DeVivo gave us a hard time when we started creating the list, but he's not here to defend himself, so I'll throw him
It's
under the
not.
bus.
So I remember when Tom did that. No, it's not, right? Most of those have that wax coating on it, right? And I think the other thing that Tommy was talking about is the same thing that I feel about aluminum foil, right? Aluminum foil, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have food grade on it, right? The same thing with the yogurt, 9 times out of 10, unless you're licking it clean, right? I know a lot of the kids do, right? But you're going to have some sort of food residue on it. The the pull off tops on that yogurt, that's going into the glass breaker. That's not making the ride. Or it's going to be stuck to something and contaminate something else. And that was, I remember Tommy's whole rant on that.
Well, I not to take away from the discussion, but right after this call, I have Tom and Tim coming for a visit, so I'll forget what we just talked about.
That's okay. You can let them know.
I will actually, Cheryl.
So Jonathan and Mike, anything to add about yogurt lids?
If they ball up, I agree with Joe, they're probably gonna have yogurt on them. And they might have some kind of, on the other side, a wax or some kind of plastic coating, so they could be a contaminant. But if they're not rolled up together with something bigger, they're probably not gonna make it there. They're gonna fall through at some point. They'll probably end up in the glass, and then they're bigger than the 2-inch screens that I'm sending it over, so it's gonna end up in the glass residue. So it's probably very unlikely that it's gonna make it to where it's this.
We'll continue to say it's out then.
Yep.
So aerosol cans, we have broken it up into two categories, both non-food and food grade. So what about non-food grade aerosol cans like shaving cream, pesticides, paint?
I think you have to be a little careful here because you start saying non-food grade, which I think the shaving cream is probably not a big deal, although there's usually shaving cream in it. But you start getting WD-40 and pesticides, and they're flammable. And either they're going to catch on fire on the line or when you bail them. And so we've had a rat, again, it's spring. So now you get a rash of these things coming in the spring that we need to be very explicit. It should be just say it's food grade. And you know, the Barbasols are going to end up in the shaving creams. But it's when they start going to even, you know, the empty, I think my WD-40 is empty. Well, it may just not have anything left, propellant left in it. Now that material catches on fire. It's dangerous.
I think they need to, residents have to do a better job of utilizing municipal drop-offs for things as well, right? Because you'll be able to ask that question right there, right? So if you use the municipal drop-off and you go talk and there's a person like Jonathan, or there's a person like Mike, or there's a person myself that works there that's highly educated in it, they'll be able to help them differentiate what goes on and out. To Jonathan's point, the WD-40 is so dangerous and people don't realize it, right? The Hot Shot, the Wasp and Hornet cleaner, a lot of aluminum buyers, right? And us, again, you go by smell, right? If you smell that in your aluminum, there's an issue, right? It shouldn't smell like that. You know, the Barbasol, any of that stuff to us isn't good because it's all usually has product left in it. And the WD-40, to Jonathan's point, you catch a spark on that WD-40, you have a serious problem, right? Because if there's seepage with it, which I've seen, is the WD-40 catches on fire, but it's seeped underneath our belts. You can't get to it. And it'll run the length of a belt. So no, out.
Yeah, it's to your first point too in the presentation, Cheryl. It's about the safety of the employees, right? That's the biggest thing for us. And then obviously, you know, to the other guy's point, the potential to damage the equipment is real, but the safety to the employees is definitely a real factor for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I want people to understand we don't want to not recycle. We want to recycle as much as we can. We built these systems to recycle what we can, but we need to do it safely and you know, keep everybody out of harm's way and our facilities out of harm's way.
And this is a great reminder that there are other programs. So Joe was mentioning about municipal programs. So household hazardous waste events. would be more suited for these types of materials, whether they had full cans or empty cans, so that that material can be captured, but not in this particular program. So we want to make sure that the messaging is consistent, that all non-food grade containers, aerosol containers, are out. And that is segues into food grade. And I only can think of 2 food grade aerosol cans, lovely Cheese Whiz and whipped cream. And that's because they use a different type of propellant. I don't know how many of these containers you guys see, but it's a small universe of food grade aerosol cans.
Yeah, we are seeing, we do see the PAM nonstick spray comes. I mean, it's in there. And it's not
It's sprayable.
problematic to us.
Yeah. They have sprayable olive oil now as well that comes through. It just matters, like, and some end users don't care, some end users do care. Just matters what. I think Jonathan and Mike, you might have run into this. The issue that I've always had is the aerosol, like air fresheners. That's always been the biggest problem with them. I haven't really run into too many problems with these.
Yeah,
I think you use the food grade, and people will say, "Well, I spray this on my food. It's okay to put in there." But like like Joe's saying, you start using the air fresheners, it's not.
Yeah.
Now our whole place smells like roses for a little while.
That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't include a picture of that, but air fresheners would also be, I didn't want to say like chemical stuff, but that's pretty much what it is. It's an air masker. And so that would be under more of a hazardous material as well.
Yeah.
But these are in, but the other ones are all out.
Yep.
For recycling coordinators taking notes. And then Halloween. Sort of like the yogurt container, we get asked about, the Uber recyclers that want to do every single little scrap of foil. Can this go in the scrunched up aluminum foil? We usually say no.
Sends up in the glass.
Yeah.
But you're saying if they wrap it up in a big sheet, yeah, but some are if they're sure it's foil, it's probably not that big a deal. But some of the candy wrappers are like foil, but they're plastic looking foil. It's almost like Christmas wrap. It's too confusing to which one's which.
Right. And that's why we say it's all out.
Agreed.
Because it's true, people can't tell the difference between plastic foil and aluminum foil.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. If you're taking notes, it's out. Oh, and this one I just thought was funny. And that's because I actually had a water bottle that exploded in the winter because I left it in the car. And then I thought I'd throw in a flask for, keep everybody awake.
You send them full. We like those full when they come. Those.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that doesn't have to be emptied of food.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to come in. I don't know if they really fit the program. They're more of a scrap metal because they're not a food grade container. We can get them out. We'd rather not have the plastic screw-in lid like on the one on top right. But we can get them out. Yep. I don't know if we want to advertise it, but
yeah. So more in line with small amounts of scrap metal and stuff like that. So maybe the municipal transfer station's a better program.
Right.
No. And then what about empty gas cans? A lot of folks get asked this question.
No.
That's where you have to utilize your municipal drop-off stuff. You got to go there and talk to them. Municipalities have it. No, please do not bring those anywhere near us. That's in the same realm as the
batteries,
the propane tanks. Yeah. That is, anytime you see that, and the 2 gentlemen on the call, even if you're 40 yards away and you see the red, you walk over. You just walk over and you check to make sure it's not gas. No, those are super dangerous.
Even before it gets to us, the whole truck it's in could go up.
And they have.
Yeah, correct.
All right, before I go to the questions, I just wanted to remind people, recycling coordinators, as you're educating the public, I usually talk about not if the item is recyclable, but whether or not it's acceptable in this particular program. Because of course, we have lots of different programs. We have a stream just for trash. We have a stream for recycling. We have a stream for yard debris. We have a stream for food scraps, bulky waste, electronics, textiles, paint, and plastic film, and Oscars just for fun. And so as you're thinking about whether or not it's acceptable versus recyclable, think about how to help people understand which program does it go to, not just that anything could be thrown into the blue bin or cart.
Cheryl,
And that,
I'm gonna ask, are we putting the blue bin on the out?
so we have no control over that. Every municipality has their own collection program. And I encourage, I don't know, waste haulers to offer carts to their customers, maybe. How's that?
It actually, I did find out because I'm separated down here with the hauling company. I think I explained that. I think in most cases we're offering the toters. I was kind of found that a little bit shocking to me, but yeah, that's what they said. And most of their deals, they're offering the toters, the barrels.
And for people that are looking to move over and don't know exactly how to set up a program, I believe Waterbury had a grant from the Recycling Partnership. I believe West Haven is actually applying currently to move over to carts through a grant through the Recycling Partnership. So
West Haven
that's a
is.
possibility as well. And just to remind everybody, the wizard can be put on any website. If you're a municipality, a community group, and of course, any of the facilities and waste haulers can also put this on their webpage so that we have one universal message going out about what is in and what is out. We also have the app, and the app has multiple languages, which is very helpful. Doesn't have all the languages that are in Connecticut, but we're pushing the widget company to try to expand that list to offer additional languages that represent our communities. All the materials you can download and print. And then just a reminder about why we're doing this is because we have a large amount of contamination. And what that contamination means is it's more difficult for these guys to sell their products. If they can't sell their products, it means that we're not truly recycling. So we need to help residents understand what is the best way to prepare and separate their materials. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and move to questions. All right. So do we tell residents to peel off the foil seal or neck ring so not already separated from the bottle after consumption? The parts that take effort to pull off?
Yes.
Yep.
We currently don't go to that level of detail right now, but it doesn't mean we can't start. Currently, our signs on the glass only containers say food or beverage glass only. Can glass from cosmetics go in?
We've always kind of followed the food and beverage rule,
Yeah.
but those things end up in there. So I think the way it came up in the presentation is, could you take these things? Yes, if they end up in there, we're going to get the glass out. But we've also kind of always gone by, it's going to be a food and beverage container.
Yeah. I don't know if I would advertise. Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's smarter to stick with what Jonathan's saying, is just make it, once you bring in, oh, that can, well, I thought that could, and I thought that could. And then next thing you know, you're inundated with stuff that you can't take because, I read on Amazon that, what I purchased was 100% recyclable. So I think it's better to just stay with the food or beverage.
I agree. The food and beverage too is the mandatory materials. So cosmetics are not mandatory. And if you allow cosmetics, you might start getting nail polish, which is what you don't want.
Right.
So
Correct.
Jen, did you have a comment?
So I'm going to jump in. Hi, Rick. Rick's from the HRI region. So he's referring to the designated glass containers we have at every HRRA municipal transfer station, designated containers. We want to stick to food and beverage containers only, so that we can stay consistent where that material can go. So right now, many of our containers do go to urban mining, but our containers can also go to SMI, to strategic, where they're going to make bottle to bottle. They don't want any contamination. So we need to stick to the list to stay consistent for our residents, and including those glass only containers. And if there's any question, when you're in doubt, throw it out. Sorry, I had to jump in because it was an HRA town. Thank you.
Reasonable.
While we're still talking to Rick, I can say food grade goes in the trash when there's food in it. I would look up through the wizard again. There's food grade with food, and then there's food grade without food. And if there's food in it, it should go in the trash. You should eat all that Cheese Whiz, all that yummy whipped cream. Okay, I'm gonna wait for that to the end. What to do with paper labels on glass? Are paper labels on glass bottles and jars a problem?
No, they haven't been an issue for us, no.
Are cat food cans out? I'm gonna answer that one. They don't want them, but it's a mandatory item. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
It's
I-
being on these calls is something that we should work towards to make it not mandatory and take it out.
I want them.
Oh, you do?
You gotta sort them. I think
Oh, you're
Mike,
my new best friend, Mike.
we could take them. You gotta sort them from the UBCs though. If you're making a UBC, you gotta sort them out.
It's been, we've been doing that. I know, Joe, we've been doing that for a bazillion years, right? So it's just the lower grade, and it has value to it. So I'm in with those.
It's a little extra work, that's all.
Yeah. So Joan, in terms of educating your residents, cat food cans are still in. They have not changed. With broken glass issue, our bin is huge and pretty much all glass deposited gets broken as it falls in. So that's not really a question.
Which is fine.
You're going to municipal. So at Jen, as Jen just spoke about, at the HRA facilities, right, you have the glass bins where you deposit the glass. When it gets broken in there, that's a direct haul to the glass recycler, such as Urban Mining, right? Great guys down there doing a great job with everything they're doing. They're taking that glass. So it's not passing through, right? What we're talking about is try to not break your glass and then put it into your container. Jonathan has a different situation because he has a majority of his routes are side load, right? So they don't touch it. For my situation, and this is what we're saying, how everybody's situation is different. For our company, we still have a lot of rear load helper routes, right? So it's dangerous, right? I think what she's referencing is the giant bins at the municipalities. And that's a direct haul, so it doesn't affect anything.
All right. It's a good thing I put in a picture of a sardine can. What about sardine cans? Are they in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love sardines. You're learning a lot about me today. So Jonathan, what is a UBC? Somebody's asking, what is UBC?
It's an aluminum can, soda can, beer can is a UBC.
It stands for used beverage container.
No.
That's the real the acronym is used beverage container. So like for us, right? So when I started, like these guys have been in the industry, I think a lot longer than me. So when I started, I didn't realize that UBC was only used beverage containers. So Mike made the reference to Anheuser-Busch. Anheuser-Busch only wants UBC. They don't want aluminum foil. They don't want cat food containers. They only want UBC. So with those commodities, Jonathan, Mike, and myself, we have different people that we go to for different things, right? So there's people that will take aluminum with, I don't know, guys, what is it, like a 10% outthrow of cat food containers most of the time. But UBC is just strictly used beverage containers, monsters, beer cans, soda cans, things like that.
Agreed. Even though Joe just called us old, Mike.
I picked up on it.
I just said you guys were doing it wrong. I came from another industry.
I hit him up early, so I just let that one pass, John.
A lot more experience.
A
Old.
lot more gray hair, I guess that means. Right?
So, there's a question about enforcement, but I don't truly understand what the question means. So if the person who asked about enforcement, could you elaborate a little bit more about what you're referring to? And then another question, olive oil spray cans. How do you suggest making sure food is cleaned out?
Bake it. You could tell if there's stuff left in it. I mean, you really.
Yeah. Empty. Needs to be empty.
Yeah.
All right, looks like I just have one more question at the moment, unless other people. Kendall's asking a great question. Summarize the top 5 takeaways. So what are the biggest issues related to I think this is what Kendall's asking, in terms of the 2" minus. What are the biggest contaminants for you related to, I guess, glass and metal?
Batteries. All sorts of batteries. I mean, the alkaline batteries aren't such a hazard that they're going to start a fire, but they are a contaminant, and they end up that's where they go. And then you've got the lithium ion batteries, the vape batteries. They're very small. They end up over there, and you hear us talking about glass crushers. You crush it, that's what causes the fire. So that's the number one contaminant for me, at least.
For us.
Just keep the 2" minus out, right? Like if you can just focus on 2" minus, like as times change, the danger doesn't, right? So couple, 10 years ago, the danger was lighters, right? You would get a ton of the plastic lighters that people would throw out that still had the butane in it that went into the crusher and exploded. Now you're at vape pens that just keep the 2" minus stuff out. Paper clip, like, we can grab the paper clips, we can grab the metal out of there, but 2" minus, just keep it out. Corks, things like that, all that stuff is all contaminants. And the part for the 3 of us and for everybody that makes it such a big deal is what Jonathan just said. Those vape pens, you hit that glass crusher, that's a fire.
Yeah, let alone the payloader tire.
Correct.
What kind of quality control do you guys have in place? And do you charge a fine or do some type of a fee associated with certain levels of contamination to municipalities or businesses that are not following the guidelines?
Yeah, you have to, right? Because for the 3 of us that are on here, if you get a recycling load that comes in and 30% of that is garbage, well, you have to pay to get rid of that, right? And the onus would fall on the facility, which it should not, right? It's a tie-in to what Kendall just explained, what she was talking about, was it when you're going around, enforcement, meaning like, are you going around and looking inside the containers? I think Jonathan, knows about, for side load, now they have an AI that can look inside the containers and see what the contaminants are. And then you can send a mailer or a fine or whatever you want to do right to that actual resident. So times are changing with it, but anything that's non-recyclable that comes into our plant costs us on the back end, right? There's a cost associated with it. There's a cost associated with it to handle it. There's a cost associated with it to dispose of it. right? So you have to at some point levy some sort of a monetary fine towards somebody.
Yeah, I think every one of our contracts has a contamination level, and it is contamination. It's people putting things in there that they want to put in there, but they don't belong. And the majority of the contamination we pull out is stuff that was not supposed to be in the beginning. We can recycle 99%, 98% of what comes into our plant if it's supposed to be there. If it's not supposed to be there, which is the majority, you get 2x4s and propane tanks and gas grills and Christmas trees. And I think we had a full chicken go by the other day. You know, it's not, you know, things that that's all that stuff that doesn't belong in there. So we have to have a way to go back. The issue is it's not always easy to see that. And it's buried, and that's why we pull the bags, because that's contamination. It's bagged, whatever. We don't know what's in that bag. So
Yeah, and we're working through existing contracts, historical contracts that do not have the level of contamination verbiage in the existing contracts that we need, to these guys' point. But absolutely, I mean, it's an education, right? Our average commodity value is completely out of whack because of the stuff that's in the recycling stream, which shouldn't be there. So you showed in the beginning is 18% contamination or whatever that number was 5 years ago. We all know it's more than that. And so that's why everybody's, you know, they're always like, oh, I can't believe you're charging for recycling. Well, I can't believe you're throwing 30% crap into the recycling when it shouldn't be there. I mean, that's the reality, right? So if we just keep the education going like we're doing and work together, believe me, all your recycling costs are going to be lower.
What people forget is out of that 18% contamination, you know, Jonathan just said, you know, I saw a whole chicken go by, right? Well, that chicken now, if it touches your mixed paper, right, you run the risk of contaminating that stuff as well, right? So contaminants, a lot of the contaminants that come into our facilities lead to a contamination of the viable product, right? So if you get the food inside the container and it just happens to be pasta sauce, right, and it goes all over the place, you run the risk of it contaminating all your fiber, right? Your Christmas lights, right, can contaminate. What if they get stuck into something? What if they make the ride, right? They're stuck inside a cardboard box, right, during Christmas, and they make the ride and it goes through everything, but it's in that box. And then the end user is sending you a picture, right? You get the pictures that come in the email that makes everybody's heart skip a beat, right? That contamination leads to more contamination.
Right.
we
Well,
could
it
all
looks
talk
like
about this all day.
yeah, that's okay. You can. I didn't mean to interrupt if you wanted to keep chatting.
No.
So somebody is referring to the last session where we talked about fiber and said, you mentioned paper, specifically Post-it notes. What is the smallest size paper scrap that can be put in the recycling bin? I think you answered it last time, but apparently they want a review.
I wasn't on that week, so I don't know what the answer was.
I had asked whether or not Post-it notes were acceptable. Like, is that too small of a piece of paper? And
They fit that small piece of paper that has a really good chance of falling through our glass breakers. It slides through the glass break. The way it works, it can slide through a whole package of Post-it notes, yeah, maybe, which seems wasteful, but that might make it. But the single, if it's stuck to this piece of paper, yeah, it's gonna make it. But if it's just thrown in there and it's dirty and it's not sticky anymore, 50-50 shot.
It's too, like, and those are the questions where it becomes extremely convoluted, right? 2" minus is going through into the glass, right? So for me, like, if it's smaller than an envelope, right? Envelopes and legal size paper. You know what I mean? Shredded paper becomes a complete disaster inside our plants, right? You can't put that in there. So that's where the questions become convoluted, and it just, right? Just, I don't know. keep it at legal size paper, keep it at envelopes.
Yeah, so basically the answer is Post-it notes are out because they're too tiny. And anything that size is out.
Business
Sounds like
cards.
you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
too small. So we have run out of questions. At least I don't see any more questions. Let me just make sure.
Light bulbs.
Light bulbs are coated.
Out. They're out.
It's a different type of glass. It's coated glass as well.
Oh yeah, light bulbs are not accepted in this program. Jessica, you should know that as a recycling coordinator, that a lot of our light bulbs are actually should be collected at household hazardous waste events. However, incandescents can be put into the regular trash. So this is a great reminder that those of you on the call, we're assuming you're recycling coordinators and you do outreach and education of residents. This is really not messaging that today is not meant for just the general resident. It's not meant for us as individuals to understand the black and the white and figure out the gray. It's really to help us understand how to create constant and consistent messaging so that our residents have a better understanding of how to recycle materials with greater ease and understanding of the mixed recycling program, aka single stream. And so I encourage everybody to keep that in mind when you're educating residents. So in closing out, before we let Jen back in, do any of you have anything you want to say to close us out? Anything you want us to remember? Anything you want recycling coordinators to know?
I think we don't utilize the municipal drop-offs informationally as much as we should either, right? So I know, obviously I work with HRA a lot, and they take a lot of time to train those transfer station employees, right? So a lot of these questions can be answered by utilizing the people that are there. And if they don't know the answer, it comes back, it'll get to us, right? I get questions all the time from people that are in the transfer stations. So educating the customer is there as well, right? If you go to the drop-off centers, you can ask a multitude of questions that'll all get answered and help you through what's in, what's out as well.
Soapbox for me is lithium ion batteries. Keep them out. Keep them out, please.
Yeah.
You talk about that all day long, Jonathan.
That and cat food containers.
Oh, yeah, right. There we go.
Oh, cat food containers are in, just so you know. Don't listen to Joe on that one.
Blue recycling bins.
Thank you for listening to us.
Well,
Yeah. Mike, do you
Thank
have any
you,
last
guys.
comments? They sort of took over.
No, it's okay. I just want to maybe just real quickly go back to a selfish moment that Jonathan had with his black plastics. I actually fortunate to have a metals yard right behind the MRF, so I definitely have a different opinion on some acceptable and not acceptable on the list. But to be honest and just be on the same page as everybody on this call, yeah, we just got to stay consistent because I take everything.
Well, that's a great way to wrap up. Thanks, Mike, because my message was going to go back to the word consistent. We need to be consistent as recycling coordinators and stick to the what's in, what's out. If you do have questions, you can always reach out to Cheryl Baldwin at Connecticut DEP. If you are from the HRRA region, please reach out to me. If you're not, you can also reach out to me. We need to continue to train the trainers so that we can ensure that the residents are recycling right. Stick with that 2-inch minus. That's the rule. That can help you with so much, and keep the messaging simple. Don't go in the gray area. We went in a little bit of gray area today just to kind of give us some understanding of why, but it's really important that we just keep the messaging very simple, black and white. I also want to remind our recycling coordinators to be careful of those mail back programs. So because we say it's not acceptable in our mixed stream, there's many mailback programs that if you read the fine print, they're actually not recycling that material. They're taking your money, you're paying for the mailing, and they're actually incinerating a lot of that material, waste to energy, and they're considering that as recycling. So before you promote a take back program that's a mail-in program, make sure you read the fine print and you know actually what is happening to that material. Is it actually getting recycled, so that you're properly giving proper messaging to your residents. I want to thank Mike, Jonathan, and Joe for joining us again today, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and Cheryl Baldwin for being here for these last 3 sessions. It's been great to have you. I understand you won't be joining us on the May 8th session, but it's been wonderful to have you as not only a Connecticut DEP staff member, but also someone who's been instrumental in our Recycle CT Foundation and creating that what's in, what's out guide. So if you are not a current member of the CRC and you want to have a recording of these last few sessions, become a member. You'll have access to that, and look for the next link to join us on May 8th. And we'll talk more in depth about contamination and how that wreaks havoc on our material recovery facilities here in Connecticut. So thank you guys. So I'm going to give you back almost 15 minutes of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.